I guess it's high up. Evening, everyone. Welcome to another Peaceful Solution Character Education Teacher Certification course. Please be seated for those of you who are with us here in the auditorium. Those who are watching online, welcome. Welcome to another class. Glad to have you with us as we move forward in this book. Moving at a pretty decent pace, too. We are in the BME, which is the advanced series of the K-12 of the Peaceful Solution Character Education program. And so we're going to be continuing on. We are in Chapter 4 this evening. And the last time we were with you, we were covering, we're talking about leadership, of course, but we were talking about, we covered some of the different scenarios of positive and negative leadership. And prior to that, those scenarios were dealing with leadership or applying leadership in everyday situations. And prior to that, William had covered what leadership is not. And we saw some of the characteristics that actually helps to make a great leader on the previous pages, which, you know, I would encourage you to go back and just kind of reread when you have an opportunity as we near rounding up the end of this chapter. And these are skills, like I mentioned last class, everything that we're developing here or that we're teaching here for the student to develop. Like I mentioned, the skill part is something that comes through application. Now, the knowledge is what they're receiving from you when you go and teach them, and the scenarios and the examples and the role play that gives them an opportunity in a controlled environment to see how to practically, you know, the practical application of those concepts that they would have learned, whether it's in the BME or any of the units that we've covered prior to this and we'll cover after this. But them setting their minds in advance and, you know, even sometimes going over scenarios or possibly even rehashing some events that might have taken place in throughout the day or throughout the week and thinking about how they handled it. Did they set a positive example? Were they a leader in that example? Were they a follower in that example? Did they follow the leader and lead the others who were following them in that example? Was it positive? Was it negative? Right? You want to get your students thinking about these things because these are the kind of scenarios that they're going to be thrust into, you know, of course, later in life, but could be right then and there. And so you want them to be equipped with the knowledge so that they can have the skill to apply that knowledge when the time arises. Remember, life comes at you in various different ways, and different scenarios, different situations, different people will test your resolve. Now, they might not realize it, right? They might not realize that that's what they're doing because they might not know how much you know or what you know in regards to character development or what your student would know. But they're testing your resolve to uphold these moral principles that have been taught. So part of the skills that were covered in the previous classes was communicating effectively, actively listening, taking initiative, mediate, prioritize, then delegating authority, knows how to delegate authority. And so those are the things that we want to focus on because this is what's going to, as we kind of continue on in our class this evening, we're going to be picking up on page 168, which is under the title Think About It. Now, we covered the different scenarios last class, and that was on pages 165. Yeah, 165 to 167. So let's go back to the lesson plan here, because this is going to have us starting a new procedure. And lesson plan, oops, come on. Should have had that page marked. All right, lesson plan 4, page H. That's where we're going to be picking up this evening. And we're going to be in procedure 9. It says instruct the instructions for the group activity I can make a difference on page 168 are as follows. Wait a minute. Oh, okay, that's after we get the think about it part done. Sorry. Divide class into groups of 3 to 4. Now, this is something that you can do if you're in a setting where you can set up groups within your class. Now, we're not, we can't do that today, but, as a teacher, you would obviously have that format or time with your students in class that you can kind of plan this in advance and make sure that you have the time either before the class ends or at the beginning of another class if some homework was assigned so that you can engage in this activity. So it says, have students discuss issues on a school, community, or nationwide level that they are concerned about and in what ways they would like to see them improved. Next, have students devise ways to bring their concerns to the awareness of others. For example, forming a club, a public service announcement, and so on. As your students are discussing the issues, note the group dynamics. Now, this is to the teacher here, right? As they're going through this and talking amongst themselves, now, because they're not talking to you at this point, they're in a group and they're going over different concerns of theirs, whether it's like we say here on a community or a society or national level, school, community, or nationwide level. And as a teacher, now you have to be looking at the students, because remember what we're talking about here. We're talking about leadership. And what you'll notice is that there will be, to some degree, kind of a natural gravitation to one person. Somebody's going to be the one that might take initiative. Now, sometimes you might have a couple, right, who are initiative takers, who have a leadership mindset and so forth. But this is instructions to the teacher. Take notice of the following points. Which student automatically took the lead role within each group? Okay, which means you're going to have to be paying attention, because this is not just something for the students only. This is something the teacher is involved in as well. Were there any groups where no one took the initiative towards a leadership role? If there were conflicts within the group, was there anyone who stepped in to mediate the situation? Who was willing to take responsibility to finalize any group decisions? And did the role of leadership fluctuate within the group, or did one dominate the entire activity? Okay. And then it says, after completion of the activity, have the students designate a spokesperson to share their ideas with the class. Then discuss your observations of group dynamics with students. So then you're going to, as a teacher, tell them what you saw. All right. Then discuss, ask students how they felt in the positions they found themselves in, and emphasize that someone must take the role of a leader in situations, and that each has a responsibility to follow the rules and work together to accomplish the task at hand. Now, the teacher in this case would be the one that would have set the rules. All right. They are the ones that set the rules for the class, and the dynamics kind of fall into place based on, personality and so forth of the individuals within the group. All right. So let's look at page 168 here. We laid that down. Let's see here. Yeah, let's look at page 168 under Think About It at the very top. It says, here is one more reason why learning to lead is valuable. As a leader, you can find satisfaction and purpose in helping others and making a difference in the world around you. And there is no shortage of ways in which you can be helpful. Now, in order to be helpful, you do have to, of course, have a desire to be helpful, but it helps to also educate yourself. The more, and this is something we always encourage our students, the more knowledgeable they are about whatever environment that they're in, the more helpful that they could be, whether it's in a classroom setting, whether they're in a work environment, something in their community, or whatever the case might be. People often fail. Now, notice this here, because this is something that's very commonplace in society. It seems like even more and more nowadays. People often fail to take action, even about things that concern them. Because, one here, they think they cannot make a difference That's one reason. Or that the problem is too big. And that's a couple of reasons why, at least a couple, why people don't take initiative. They don't step up, as it says, step up to the plate and take initiative. Let's finish this out here. Have you ever heard the saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step? To accomplish anything, you must first make an effort. The worst thing you can do is, notice big capital letters there at the very end, exclamation point, nothing. That's the worst thing you can do. Because here's the thing about it. You know, we see things in society on an everyday basis. And now, of course, as teachers, you're talking to your students, and they might even have the mindset that, well, what can I do? You know, I'm only 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. I'm just one little person or one little, boy or girl or whatever the case might be. How can I bring about change in my community? How can I affect change within society as a whole? Well, all change started with at least one person. All great movements and inventions and, growth within society, they started with, first off, a thought. It was a thought. Everything started as a thought. Even you think about this on a larger scale, and this is something you can kind of get your students to become aware of, because we're talking about the building of the character and the things that affect our character. Part of it is our thoughts and how our thoughts are. Are they positive? Are they negative? We focus on the positive. Are we eliminating the negative? Or are we allowing all these different influences to come in and dictate how we perceive the world around us? But everything that we see, that we look in, the chair you're sitting in, the table, this beam, this auditorium, the concrete, it all started with a thought. Somebody thought to do something, and then they put forth the initiative to make it a reality. Okay? And we don't see everything behind the scenes behind that. Even with leaders who have, made changes in society, we hear about, now to some degree, if you watch a documentary or the person individually, you might know of the different struggles that they went through to bring about that change. But in a lot of cases, sometimes people see just the great stuff. You look at that people who have made it big in certain industries, in the e-commerce and technology and energy and so forth, and people go, oh man, that guy, he sure is lucky. He's worth billions and billions of dollars. Now of course, he did revolutionize this or that, or she revolutionized this or that in the medical field, and this took place, and now every hospital's using that. I sure would have liked that. I sure would have liked to have been the person that invented Ziploc bags or, Velcro or, something as simple as that, and people just look at it and they see the end result, but they don't take into consideration the struggles, the falls, the failures, the hardships, the going back to the drawing board, the opposition, the resistance, that those people went through in order to get to that point where they were successful or became a quote unquote overnight success. And that's really, really something that I would encourage us as teachers right now to stress to our students, because in a time period right now where social media is dominating the lives of many young people, what they see is a fairy tale, right? What they see is fake. What they see is a falsehood, and they're comparing their lives to what they see on the screen, and they get very frustrated when things don't work out when things don't work out the way that they think that they should, because they saw this on the gram or TikTok or one of these other social media platforms, and these people are influencers, leaders in the field. Why can't I do it? Well, that's not real, and you're not seeing everything that they've done to get to that point. So as teachers, it's up to us to kind of set the precedence and the foundation in their hearts and their minds to help them to understand that, yeah, you're going to have struggles in anything that you endeavor, but with these character skills, these character traits that you're developing, being patient and steadfast and being disciplined and determined and exercising self-control, right? You can accomplish any positive thing that you desire. And you could actually affect a positive change in society, whether it's your local community or on a global scale. But we want to, our goal is to lay that foundation in their minds of moral principles, to have everything that they do be based on those moral principles, that nothing will bring harm to themselves, others, or the environment. And they can lead the world in those moral principles in whatever field that they might be in. All right, so let's look back here, this first paragraph. Notice there, just to rehash there, people often fail to take action. In other words, they don't take initiative. The definition here, let me see here, of initiative. Did I write that down? Yeah, definition of initiative. Basically, initiative is just to, oh yeah, here it is. It says an initiative is the first in a series of actions. Initiative can also mean a personal quality that shows a willingness to get things done and take responsibility. Now, this responsibility part, of course, is a positive character trait that we've covered already and we'll continue to cover in this. And, one of the interesting thing is because initiative, initiate, ignition, inertia, all these things kind of, they're kind of the first part of a process. Just to get into a little bit of physics here, Newton has like 3 laws of motion, and the only one that we're going to look at here is the first law, which is the law of inertia. And he didn't invent these things; he just discovered them, by study and so forth. And he wasn't even the first person. But it says, an object at rest remains at rest, and an object in motion remains in motion at constant speed and in a straight line unless acted on by an unbalanced force. So now when we look at that from a metaphoric sense in society, things that are moving along in a negative way, they're going to continue to move along in a negative way unless there's a force to throw that pattern off balance. In this case, it would be somebody coming in and saying, if we continue to go down this path, we're going to bring destruction or harm to ourselves and the environment. This is what we need to do to fix it. Okay? And so at the same time, when we're talking about leadership, you notice here the last sentence again, it says the worst thing you can do is nothing. Well, if an object is at rest, whether it's a mind or your heart or your body and taking an action, and you don't put forth that inertia, right? You don't take that initiative to change or get to moving to produce some type of effect. There's an old saying that, all labor there is gain, right? You're going to achieve something if you put forth the effort and you work at it. It might be little at first, but if you consistently, consistency, remember that's something we also talk about in the program, throughout the program, being consistent is just as important as putting forth that initial effort. Because if you're not consistent, then you put forth the initial effort, then you won't come back the next day to do it again, right? Or if you are honest one day and you're not consistent in maintaining that character trait of honesty, when the opportunity arises and you see it's going to benefit you, you'll lie. So consistency is just as important as taking the initiative, but at the same time, we want to take educated initiative. We want to make sure that the thing that we're doing, that we encourage our students, the thing that they're doing with A, permission, and B, based on certain facts that they can somewhat get an idea of what the outcome will be when they take that initiative, right? You don't want to be impulsive, which is, taking action and not considering the outcome of the situation, because impulsivity is also a form of initiative, right? And people can take initiative without even considering what the end result is going to be, and they kind of suffer as a result of it. So we always want our students to make informed decisions in the things that they do. And so, but here it says the worst thing you can do is nothing. And it was interesting because I was listening to some information, and this, I don't want to say it's a buzzword, but I've heard a lot of it lately. Probably only because I've heard it and now I'm hearing it a lot more. But it's a phrase called analysis paralysis. And people get into what's called an analysis paralysis because, there's a saying, if you wait for the perfect time to act, you'll never act, right? Because there's never going to be a perfect time. The perfect time to act on something is now, right now. Do it right now, right? But the phrase analysis paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, describes an individual or group process where overanalyzing or overthinking a situation can cause forward motion or decision making to become paralyzed, meaning that no solution or course of action is decided upon within a natural time frame. So now, going back to what we covered here, the people fail to act because they think that they cannot make a difference or that the problem is too big. What can I do? Right? Well, in order for me to do this, I need to do that. I need to have this. I need to talk to these people. I need to do this. I need to learn and get all this information. It's going to take me years to get all this before I can make a change. And in the meantime, they're thinking about all these things that they need to do, possibly even reading all these books that they need to read nowadays, watching all the training videos or listening to all the podcasts, but they never take one step to act on the thing that they want to change. And that's what they call analysis paralysis. A situation may be deemed too complicated and a decision is never made, or made much too late due to anxiety that a potential larger problem might arise. A person might desire a perfect solution, but might fear making a decision that could result in error, while on the way to a better solution. Let me read that again. A person might desire a perfect solution, but might fear making a decision that could result in error while on the way to a better solution. Equally, a person might hold that a superior solution is a short step away and stall in its endless pursuit with no concept of diminishing returns. In other words, I'm holding out. I'm holding out. I'm waiting for something better to take place before I act on this particular thing. In the meantime, you're losing the opportunity every day to take the initiative to bring about a change, right? And more problems are building and building and building because nothing's being done. Kind of like, the guy that says, well, I'm gonna, my tire's flat. I got the warning on my dash that says I have a low tire warning, but you keep passing all these gas stations because you want to get to the gas station that has premium eco-friendly air. In the meantime, your tire's getting lower and lower, and you're going to start, riding on the rim, and eventually you're going to ruin the tire to the point where you can't even fill it up with air. Okay, and so this can occur in a mental or metaphoric sense as well. Let's see here. On the opposite end of the spectrum of analysis paralysis is the phrase extinct by instinct, which is making a fatal decision based on hasty judgment or gut reaction. So in other words, making an uneducated decision. So that's some of the reasons why people don't make decisions at times, not just with our students in school, but just in society as a result of it. And there's other things that come into play as well. Sometimes people don't do things because they're afraid of how they might be perceived. If they step out and take the first step, or like it says here, they might be afraid that they're going to make a mistake, and they could be embarrassed because they make a mistake. But I remember the author saying one time of the Peaceful Solution, he said, if you're not making mistakes in life, you're not trying. You're not putting forth any effort. Now, I guarantee you're not going to make any mistakes or bad choices if you don't do anything. If you sit in your room, not doing anything, I want to be perfect, I don't want to make any mistakes, you're not going to make any mistakes. That is in life anyway. I think your big mistake will be sitting in your room and not doing anything, because your joints are going to get all stiff, and you're going to be sore, and you're going to get hungry, and and so forth. But in life, we just have to get out there and do it. And that's one thing we want to encourage our students. I remember growing up and I had a lot of opportunities to do various things, like with camping and learning about archery and spelunking and whitewater rafting and so forth. And some of those things were scary, but I wouldn't have known what that experience was if I didn't do it, right? And you're always going to, what's the saying? You'll definitely miss out on the things that you don't try. Now I'm not saying we should encourage our students to do risk-taking things. Of course not. But there are a lot of things in life that will bring absolutely no harm to them whatsoever, but they're afraid. And it's sometimes just a false perception of fear. It could be embarrassment, or they've never done anything, like going and speaking in front of a group of people, or giving a presentation in front of the class or something like that. No harm is going to come to them by giving a presentation in front of class. Like somebody said, nobody's ever died of embarrassment, but we have to encourage them to take that initiative and to be the leaders. Find, as we covered in this lesson here, self-leadership, right? Self-leadership, which is coupled with self-control and discipline and so forth, to take that action to become the person that they want to be. All right. So let's continue on here in the next paragraph. This is where being a leader and utilizing your leadership skills can get the ball rolling. It's funny because they actually, in that Newton's law, they one of the demonstrations there was a person kicking a ball and showing that the ball was stationary and it didn't roll until a force was exerted upon it, which was the person kicking the ball. But the ball, outside of Newton's law, because it says once it's in motion, it'll stay in motion, but certain forces were exerted upon the ball that kept it from continuing to roll. In this case, it would have been friction from the ground and gravity pulling down on the ball. Well, in life, there's going to be forces that oppose people doing the right thing. There'll be forces that oppose people making change for the better. And you're also going to have to, you'll find, in just dealing with people and as a leader, that you have to keep that motion going. If you've ever kicked the ball, I don't think I've ever played soccer. Well, we call it soccer here. I think it's football everywhere else in the world. But, if you're kicking that ball down the field, you don't kick that ball and it just rolls all the way down the field. You got to keep kicking the ball, and you got to push it in the direction that you want it to go. Well, it's kind of the same with people, except we're not kicking people, but we're moving them in a positive direction, because remember, that's what leaders do, right? They motivate and they encourage people to move in a particular direction, in a positive direction, in order to accomplish goals, specific goals. And one of the results, the end results of great leadership, is productivity, right? Productivity. You're going to produce something from yourself and your team. And so we have to be mindful that, hey, just because you got the ball rolling doesn't mean you can just, what they say in the old, what was that? It wasn't the home shopping, but as seen on televisions, just set it and forget it. It doesn't work like that in life. No, you have to be involved continuously when you're working with people, because people lose motivation, right? A great leader can get people motivated, but a positive leader will keep the people disciplined and determined. Because motivation is, now you don't think about this with motivation, but motivation is more of a feeling, right? When you describe motivation, you say you what motivated? You what? I feel motivated, right? I feel motivated. Now, does everybody feel like they're ready to go run a race 24 hours a day? Everybody feel energetic all day? Do you feel motivated all day? I'll be honest, I don't, right? It's like it ebbs and it flows. And so those things come and go, but a leader will know that, yeah, motivation might get the team moving, but we have to be consistent and disciplined and continue to push them forward and encourage them to help your team to even develop a certain level of self-discipline, which means the leader has to be disciplined themselves in order to continue to move the team forward. And these are the skills to get the ball rolling, as we said here, but keep in mind that leaders take the initiative. Leaders also motivate others to take notice of issues they might otherwise be unaware of. And sometimes it could just be something as showing somebody something or bringing something up, and then everybody go, oh, wow, I didn't even notice that. I didn't notice that until somebody brought it to our attention. And I think many of us have been in those situations before. By using positive character skills like determination, steadfastness, and patience, you can build interest in a worthy cause and maybe even change a few lives in the process. Take a few minutes to think about some of the issues that concern you. For example, you might be concerned about violence, teen pregnancy, or the homeless. List the issues that concern you on the lines below. Then consider in what ways you can bring awareness to these issues in the school you attend or the community in which you live. Now, this is the assignment that you would have been separating your students into several groups so that they could work on, and that you as the teacher are going to take note of the group dynamics to see who takes the role of leadership, who's the spokesperson, who helps, and so forth. And this is entitled here, I Can Make a Difference. And under here, there are three things that the students will go over. There'll be issues that they are concerned about. They can list three things. And then what they could do on the other line there, what they could do about it, what they would like to do about it. And then at the bottom one, ways that they can bring awareness to it. All right, so that's what they would do as an activity. And I kind of did it myself here. Just thinking about, for example, like homelessness. So this is an example. Things that I'm concerned about. It could be homelessness. What I would like to do about it could be to reduce or eliminate it altogether. Ways that I can build awareness. Of course, they could talk to their teacher, principal, guidance counselor about the problem, seek guidance from them on what can be done as a student to bring awareness to the school and community about homelessness in our society. Possibly arrange a field trip to a homeless shelter to speak with counselors there to determine what's the biggest reason for people being homeless and to see if there are any programs available that can help people address the issues that led to their homelessness, whether it's drugs, substance abuse, loss of employment, mental health issues, etc. And, a lot of these places that are set up to work with homelessness in the community, they have those programs available, but somebody in school might not know this. So this would be an opportunity for them to educate themselves about the topic. See what they can do to help bring awareness to the community about the issue and what resources are needed to help people rebuild or build their character through counseling, secure work through business owners in the community. Possibly they could team up with them, or provide temporary housing with property owners within the community until they can get back on their feet and secure a new life for themselves. They could also help bring awareness to this or make others aware by putting up flyers or posters, having school assemblies to have professionals or counselors from homeless shelters come and speak about the issue and what could be done to help. They could also engage in fundraisers for the community as well. So those are some of the things that can be done as or set as an example. And of course, you would have one of the students select a spokesperson to share their progress or what they came up with on that work there with the I Can Make a Difference. All right, so let's look at page 169. Guess what? You have just taken the first steps towards making a difference about the issues you care about. Now, this will be after the assignment and everything is done. Everybody's given their presentation, and then you go forward onto this page right here. Let me just make sure, because I think we do go back here, pick up on 169. Yes, let's look back to lesson plan 4, page 8. H. Lesson plan 4, page H. And procedure 10. Instruct students to read the letter by Lamarvis Jenkins, found on page 169, which we're going to get to after we finish at the very top there. And then follow up on the home assignment by briefly discussing it based on the following points. How did Jamarvis Jenkins' leadership skills impact his community, and how can his work be inspirational to others, which we're going to read here just a little bit. We should have enough time. All right, so you have just taken the first steps on page 169 at the top, making a difference about these issues you care about. But do not stop there. Speak with the responsible adult, your parents, teachers, or principal, for example, for suggestions on how you can turn your plans into hopes and realities. So this is what we just kind of covered there, and reiterating in the student's mind there, this is putting in their mind, talk to someone who's in authority. You know, you might have something you're concerned about. You might have an idea or a plan to take initiative, to bring awareness, or to do something, but don't just go out there and do it. Talk to somebody and let them guide you, and they might have information that you don't know about, right? And not only information you don't know about or who you might be able to talk to or how you can go about it, but other things also that can keep you safe as well. You might also need to research the areas you are interested in to see what, if anything, is currently being done to address those issues. Keep in mind that making a difference might start off small at first, so don't get discouraged. The point is, you are taking the initiative and putting forth the effort to make the world a better place. And again, that's what we want to encourage them and remind them of, irregardless of the fact that they might just be one person. The work and the initiative that they take can lead to, it can spread out to many people as a leader, and people can follow, or as they say, get on board or get on the bandwagon, so to speak, with their initiative and start helping to affect change. And that's how things, they say, it's like a grassroots effort. It starts very, very small, and it just grows from there. So we want to encourage them to not be discouraged because of their age or possibly even their lack of knowledge. You know, age changes from year to year, and knowledge can grow with the effort that you put into it. All right, so let's look at the following letter here from a young man from Queens, New York, who decided to make a difference in his school. Dear Peaceful Solution, hi, my name is Lamarvis Jenkins, and I started a club my sophomore year at high school. It's called SAVE, or SAV, which stands for Students Against Violence. I attend one of the toughest schools in Queens, New York. The violence has gotten so bad that when we come to school in the morning, we have to pass through metal detectors at the door, and we have security guards patrolling the halls and back staircases. The other day, one of the students was arrested for trying to sell drugs, in the hallway, and this little freshman was pushed down a flight of stairs. Security had to call an ambulance to take him to the hospital. I started the club by talking to my math teacher. He thought it was a great idea and told me to write down my ideas and suggestions. He took it before the school board, and they unanimously approved it. Now, as part of ISS, or in-school suspension, that's not the International Space Station, students are taught anger management. Of course, they'd probably get a little bit of, if they were forced to stay on the International Space Station for 6 months, you know. They had an issue not too long ago with getting people back from there. I think they were supposed to be there for a few days and they ended up being there for like 8 or 9 months. But as part of in-school suspension, students are taught anger management and conflict resolution. There is also a group of us who have been trained in mediational approaches. Now, when students are having problems or disagreements, we can help them work their problems out in a non-violent way. The other day at assembly, SAVE was mentioned as having been effective at reducing problematic situations. Now, don't get me wrong, SAVE has not solved all the problems at school. We still have fights, and the metal detectors are still needed, but I know that I have made a difference. I know that I have helped in whatever way I could. It gives me a sense of accomplishment to know that instead of just complaining about things being messed up, the other members and I are putting forth the effort to make things better. Lamarvis Jenkins, founder of SAVE. And that's very important, because I guarantee you, in a room full of people, you could find a room full of 100 people, you can find, about 99 people who have something to complain about. And maybe one who will offer a solution. And that's what we're looking for. And that's what we're building in the minds of our students. Remember what we're focusing on: accentuating the positive and eliminating the negative. Now, of course, you have to acknowledge that there's a problem. That's one of the 3 steps to stopping all wars presented by the Peaceful Solution. You have to admit that there's a problem. And that's what Lamarvis, covered in his letter, that there was a problem. There was fights, there was drugs being sold, going through metal detectors, people being pushed downstairs and things of that nature. So now, what can we do about it? Okay. And this is an example of initiative, or a leader in this case, because he put forth the effort and he was realistic about it, right? He didn't get discouraged because the whole school wasn't converted to a very peaceful place. No, he had realistic expectations about it. And even though there were still some issues, the environment as a whole did benefit from his efforts. Okay. So that's another thing, don't, remind your students, hey, listen, your efforts might not, bring about a conversion of the mindset of everybody that you deal with, but rest assured that you put forth the effort to affect a positive change, and that there will be many people who receive benefit from that. And I guarantee you the people who receive the benefit from it are very appreciative of the efforts that you put forth. Let this leader be an inspiration to you. Remember, if Lamarvis Jenkins can do it, you can, so can you. With a positive character, leadership skills, patience, and determination, you too can make a difference in your life and in the lives of others. All right, so here are a few other rewards of being a positive leader. Now notice here, the first thing is there's 3 points that we're going to look at here. The first one is it gives your life purpose and direction. All right, and if you can write down for your notes there. I'm sure you don't probably have it. The acceptance unit. This reminded me of the acceptance unit because in this unit in chapter 5 and actually chapter 5 and 6, but chapter 5 we talked about purpose. 6 talks about goals, and purposes and goals, they go hand in hand. And what we're talking about in leadership, and being a positive leader, one of the rewards is it gives your life purpose and direction. And in chapter 5 on page 87 in the acceptance unit, under there is purpose to it all, it says to have purpose in life means to have a positive direction. And that's one of the things we always want to reiterate to our students, even when we tell them, you can accomplish anything you set your mind to do. Let that be coupled with in a positive manner, with a positive goal. Because I guarantee you, people will try to accomplish negative things too. People have set their minds to accomplish negative things, and they have been successful at it as well in life, right? But we want to always encourage our students to accomplish positive things, not, I'm going to set my mind to getting back at that bully because he did this and such to me, and the day's going to come, I'll get back at him. No. You see the example that Lamarvis took, right? He didn't get angry. He got busy. right? He got busy with doing the work that could help to make a change, not just for one person, but for the school as a whole. Knowing your purpose helps you to know what you want to do with your life. And if you look at the next paragraph there, it says, unless you understand that your life has purpose, you can easily dismiss the effect that you can have on the life of others. And that's what we're talking about with leadership here. And we were getting them set up all the way in the second unit of the intermediate series for what we're covering right now, in understanding even their purpose, because them understanding that helps them to know how they affect the lives of others when they get to the point when they're in a position of leadership, and them being a positive leader, and how that positivity and their demonstration of their positive character traits affect those around them. And then the next point there, a reward of being a positive leader, is you can be of service to others. And that's sometimes in society, that's not what people they want to be known as. If you tell somebody, man, you're a great servant, what? This is not the 1800s. I'm not your slave, or whatever. I'm a free man. I'm a free woman, or whatever. It's like, no. You know what they call our leaders in society? Politicians, law enforcement officers. Someone said it out there. Yeah, public servants. They're public servants. And the higher the position, the greater the servant, or the greater the service that you are responsible for. I mentioned it before in a previous class that not in the United States, of course, the word secretary means it's a form of service, right? We say secretary, and other places they say ministers. And the chief servant in other countries is the prime minister, the highest servant of that country. So, serving others or taking that role or position of a servant is not a negative thing, right? Just don't serve negativity. Don't allow yourself to be influenced negatively by others. That's when it becomes bad. But serving others and helping others, it's a very beneficial thing. When people pull up to the drive-through, I guarantee you they want somebody to serve them, right? Could you imagine going to the restaurant and sitting down at a table and, an hour later, we didn't even get any breadsticks, Oh, this is a DIY restaurant. You got to do it yourself, Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see the sign when I walked in, right? People like to be served, and so we should like to serve others. Then the last point there is you can bring awareness to others about important issues. And these were covering the rewards of being a positive leader. And you see number at the very bottom in the box there, it says, leaders reach down to pull others up, reach down. Notice the guy is extending his hand down to help the other person. He doesn't have his foot on the other guy's head. This is the mindset of some in society. In order to get to the top, I got to step on a lot of people, right? And some people think that, it's they call it a cutthroat industry. To take out your enemy or your competition in order to get ahead. Well, that's not what the peaceful solution teaches. Peaceful solution teaches that you can lead by example. And if you're great at what you do, you don't have to eliminate your competition. In fact, you might even encourage your competition to improve certain things about how they do what they do, because you've set the standard. You're the trendsetter in a positive way, and no one got hurt in the process. This is how we have to reprogram the thinking of people in society, because you're shown on these different shows and even these invention shows and so forth. You've got to be the best. You've got to outdo the other guy. You got to, squash him and make his product or his service look, menial, right? But that's not what we're training our students in the peaceful solution. They say leaders look forward, and leaders focus on success, and losers focus on the leaders, right? They're always looking at the other guy and thinking, that such and such, who does he think he is? revolutionizing the health industry. How dare he? All right, let's go back to lesson plan 4, page H. Look at procedure 12 there. It says explain that they too can make improvements in the world around them by using their leadership skills learned from the Peaceful Solution Character Education program. Conclude the lesson by having students turn to page 171 and read the section entitled What I Have Learned, and reemphasize that leadership is an integral part of building and maintaining a positive character. Note, allow students to complete the Chapter 4 student post-assessment form. Remember, we cover that, and that's going to be, let's see here, where's that at? That's here on page 177 there. Oh, yeah, it says it right there. But that'll be after we cover what I have learned here. And that's upon completing the lesson. And then you see there in the little boxes some benchmarks. Understands that there is a difference between positive and negative leadership. This is to you as the teacher. These are benchmarks that you need to see coming forth from your students, that they understand that there is a difference between positive and negative leadership. They understand the character and skills needed for positive leadership, that they understand that by maintaining a positive character, they are practicing self-control, and they need to recognize that through positive, effective leadership, they can make a difference in the world. Without that, understanding that, then we probably would have to go back and redo the lesson there, just to make sure that they get those points, or at least certain points of the lesson, right, as the teacher. All right, let's look over here to what I have learned on page 171, and we'll get into a little bit of this before we close out. And notice the first point. We only have 4 points in this one here. It says, leaders can be found in all areas of life and are responsible for those who look to them for guidance and direction. And in verse 1, page 145, we see here under introduction that leadership in society is the element that is responsible for guiding and directing others towards specific towards a specific purpose, aim, or goal. And if you look, let's see here, if you look down to the second paragraph there, it says leadership within the human species, however, is more complicated, talking about the animal nature there, and the responsibilities of a leader are far more varied than in the animal kingdom. Many great leaders since the dawn of civilization have been responsible for building great cities and inventions which have changed the course of history. Leaders help define ideals that are important to a society and have been responsible for times of both peace and war within their own countries and between nations. And then in page 146, we see here, leaders are all around us. The ability to lead is not limited by height, size, or physical strength. Leaders are people from all walks of life who have combined both character and personality traits along with drive and ambition to motivate others towards specific goals. Okay, you see this because they come from all areas of life. And then lastly there, page 153, leaders, under what it all boils down to, leadership without consideration, care, and concern is devastating to individuals and society as a whole. It has resulted in untold human suffering and loss of lives due to violence, crime, and war. Leaders have a responsibility to those who look to them for guidance and direction. A positive leader combines traits such as compassion and consideration to bring about greater unity, peace, and overall improvement to the quality of life. All right. And just an example here of some leaders. Let's see here. Can we see our first slide? Does anybody recognize this gentleman? Anybody from Britain here? Okay, no. Did somebody say that? Huh? Yeah, he's a runner. It's his name is Roger Bannister. You heard of that name? Yeah, he was the first person to run a 4-minute mile. A 4-minute mile. And he did this back in 19 1954 at the age of 25. He ran it in 3.59.4 minutes there. And the mile record there has since been lowered by 16.27 seconds, but he was the first one, right? He was kind of the leader in his field in that. Before that, nobody had done it, right? Nobody had done it in under 4 minutes. And it's funny because what he did created a kind of a domino effect where since him breaking that record, or not record, setting that record in 1954, what did it say here? 1,755 athletes have broken the 4-minute mile, running in under 4 minutes. But before that, nobody was running the 4-minute mile. Everybody just accepted that nobody could run a mile faster than 4 minutes. Let's look at the next slide there. Anybody recognize this man? Unless you were alive before 1912, you probably wouldn't. His name is Joseph Lister. Joseph Lister. That's his name. Now, you might notice the similarity with this man's name. He was famous as the father of antiseptic surgery. His introduction of the antiseptic process dramatically decreased deaths from childbirth and surgery, revolutionizing modern surgery. Lister's work developing sterilization procedures saved countless lives and increased the safety of major operations. Because it's interesting, because there was a particular hospital that they called it like I don't know what they called it, but I think it had like a nickname, like the Death Hospital, where it was like a staggering like 40% of live births ended in death. And what they had found was that doctors would go and they would do operations, or they would work on people in the morgue, and then they would come and deliver a baby. They weren't washing their hands. They weren't wearing gloves. They weren't doing any of those things. And the mortality rate at a particular hospital was increased because they were transferring pathogens from one person to another. Well, he kind of found it out about through experiments and so forth, that certain combination of things created antiseptic properties that actually sterilized the tools they were using and the hands. Now, what I said his name was familiar with, because his name is the name from which Listerine comes from. Listerine, right? It kills germs, kills bad breath. You can take it, the bugs can't. Everybody remember Listerine? I used to say it was made from horse something else. But anyway, it's a very, very strong. I remember taking it when I was little, and boy, that it burned. But it's interesting because he did that, and they started seeing mortality rates in hospitals go down because they were sterilizing their equipment. Doctors were sterilizing their hands. They were engaging in healthy practices. And last but not least, let's look at slide number 3. Israel Hawkins. He's the author, historian, and educator. And what's notable about him is seeing the troubles in society due to a lack of morality and caring enough about the world. He thought to bring a change. So he, along with 50 parents and teachers, put together a curricula back in 1994 that became known as the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. Today, the program has positively affected the lives of millions of people from all walks of life over the world. So whether it's sports, whether it's medicine, whether it's education, anybody can be a leader. And all these men, one of the things that, except for the runner guy, but one of the things that's notable about them is they saw a problem and they did something about it. They took initiative. They didn't think it was too big and just sit and hope and wait for somebody to make a change. No, they took initiative. And their work has benefited countless, if not millions of people for years on end. So we're going to stop right there, and we'll pick up with the next point here, and what I have learned on point number 2, and what I have learned on page 171. And our next class will be this upcoming Wednesday, which will be February 12th at 5:30 Central PM, Central PM, 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and our next teacher for class will be David. Thank you all for coming. We look forward to seeing you at the next class, and have a wonderful evening.